My name is Melvina Hart, and I'm 69 years old. For 35 years, I was married to a man who thought I needed him to survive. A man who believed I was nothing without his money, his name, his protection. His name was Shade Hart, and he was wrong about everything. The day I walked away from him was the day his whole world crumbled. And I'll never forget the look on his face when he realized I wasn't the helpless woman he thought I was. I stood in the driveway of our mansion. The house Shade always said was his, even though my money had paid for half of it. My car was packed with my belongings. Not much, just clothes, photos, and a few personal items. Shade stood on the front steps, his arms crossed, a smirk on his face. He was 68 years old, tall and handsome in an aging way, wearing his expensive suit like it was armor. "You'll be back," he said confidently. "You have nowhere to go, Melvina, no money, no skills. You've been a housewife for 35 years. What are you going to do? Work at a grocery store?" He laughed, actually laughed. I looked at him calmly, my hand on my car door. "I won't be back, Shade." "Sure you won't," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Give it a week. You'll realize you can't survive without me. You'll come crawling back, begging me to take you back. And maybe, if you apologize properly, I will." I opened my car door and paused. Then I turned back to look at him one more time. "Shade, there's something you should know," I said quietly. "What's that?" he asked, still smirking. "I'm not leaving you with nothing," I said. "I'm leaving you with less than nothing, and I'm walking away richer than you've ever been." His smirk faltered. "What are you talking about?" I smiled, a real smile full of power and satisfaction. "You'll find out soon enough." I got in my car and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw Shade standing there, confusion replacing his confidence. He had no idea what was about to hit him. But he would find out, very soon. To understand how I got to that moment, you need to know the truth about my marriage to Shade Hart. We got married 35 years ago in 1990. I was 34 years old, and Shade was 33. I was a successful accountant with my own small firm. Shade was a real estate investor who was just starting to make money. When we met, I was instantly attracted to him. He was charming, confident, ambitious. He told me he wanted to build an empire, and he wanted me by his side. "Together, we'll be unstoppable," he said on our third date. "Your financial skills and my business instincts will be millionaires." I believed him, and for the first few years of our marriage, it was true. We worked together. I managed our finances while Shade bought and sold properties. We made good money. But then Shade started changing. He'd come home and say things like, "I closed another deal today, made $50,000. Not "we made 50,000. I made it." When I'd point out that I'd done the financial planning and tax strategy that made the deal profitable, he'd wave his hand dismissively. Sure, you helped, but I'm the one who actually made it happen." Over time, it got worse. Shade started telling me I should quit my accounting firm and focus on supporting him. He said if I wasn't working outside the home, I could be more available for his business needs. "Plus," he added, "we don't really need your income. I'm making enough for both of us now." I was hesitant, but Shade was persuasive. He promised that everything we built would be ours, that we were partners in every way. So in 1995, 5 years into our marriage, I closed my accounting firm and became a full-time wife and business partner to Shade. That was my first mistake. At first, things seemed fine. I still did all the financial work, bookkeeping, taxes, investment planning. I just did it from home instead of an office. But slowly, Shade started cutting me out. He stopped asking for my input on business decisions. He'd make deals without telling me. When I'd find out and ask questions, he'd get irritated. "Why are you questioning me?" he'd say. "Don't you trust me?" "I just want to understand." "Melvina, I'm the businessman. You're the wife. Let me handle the business and you handle the home." But I wasn't just handling the home. I was still doing all the financial work. I was the one who made sure taxes got paid, invoices got sent, bills got organized. I was the one making sure Shade's business actually ran smoothly. But he never acknowledged it. To hear him tell it, he was a self-made man who'd built everything on his own. I was just the supportive wife. As the years went by, Shade got richer and richer. His real estate investments paid off. He bought properties all over the city, then all over the state. By our 20th anniversary in 2010, we were worth millions. But it was always his money, his properties, his success. When we'd go to business events, people would congratulate Shade on his accomplishments. He'd smile and thank them, never once mentioning that his wife did all the financial strategy. Once at a party, a man asked me, "So what do you do, Mrs. Hart?" Before I could answer, Shade jumped in. "Melvina is a homemaker. She takes care of me so I can focus on building the business." The man nodded approvingly. "That's wonderful. Every successful man needs a good woman supporting him from home." I smiled and said nothing, but inside I was screaming. The breaking point came 3 months ago, on a Tuesday afternoon in August. I was in Shade's home office, organizing financial documents. Shade was on the phone with his lawyer, Green Patterson, discussing some business matter. I wasn't really listening until I heard Shade say something that made my blood run cold. "Yeah, I want to make sure everything is in my name only," Shade said. "The properties, the accounts, all of it. If something happens, if Melvina and I ever split up, I don't want her to get half of what I've built." My hands froze on the papers I was holding. "I know we're in a community property state," Shade continued, "but there has to be a way around that. Can we argue that she didn't contribute to the business? She's just been a housewife for 30 years. My heart pounded. "Good," Shade said. "Draw up whatever papers you need. Just make sure my assets are protected. The last thing I need is to lose half my fortune to someone who didn't actually earn it." He hung up and turned around. That's when he saw me standing there. "Melvina," he said, not even looking embarrassed, "I didn't hear you come in." "I've been here the whole time," I said quietly. "I heard everything." Shade shrugged. "Then I'm just being smart. Business is business, Melvina. A man has to protect what he's built." "What you've built," I said, my voice rising. "Shade, I've been doing your books for 30 years. I've managed every financial aspect of your business. I'm the reason you're not bankrupt." "You did some paperwork," Shade said dismissively. "That's not the same as building a business. I'm the one who took the risks, made the deals, created the empire. You just helped a little." I stared at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Shade, we're married. We built this together." "No," Shade interrupted. "I built this. You lived off what I built. There's a difference." "I gave up my career for you," I said, tears in my eyes. "I closed my firm to support you." "And I took care of you for 30 years, Shade said. "You've had a nice house, nice clothes, nice life. That's the trade-off, Melvina. I provide you support. But at the end of the day, the empire is mine." I stood there, shaking with anger and hurt. "If you're unhappy, you're free to leave," Shade said coldly. "But you'll leave with nothing, because nothing here is yours." That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed next to Shade, listening to him snore, thinking about the past 35 years. All the work I'd done, all the sacrifices I'd made, all the times I'd put his business ahead of everything else. And Shade thought I'd contributed nothing. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to argue with Shade. I wasn't going to beg him to see my value. I was going to prove it. The next day, while Shade was at a business meeting, I went to see my own lawyer. Her name was Zenobia Cross, and she was one of the best divorce attorneys in the state. I'd known her casually through social circles, but I'd never needed her services. Until now. "Mrs. Hart," Zenobia said when I walked into her office, "what can I do for you?" "I want a divorce," I said, "and I want to make sure I get everything I'm entitled to." Zenobia leaned forward. "Tell me everything." I spent 2 hours telling her about my marriage, about Shade's business, about my role in building our wealth, and about the conversation I'd overheard. Zenobia took detailed notes. When I finished, she looked at me seriously. Mrs. Hart, your husband is trying to hide assets and minimize your contributions. But here's the good news. We're in a community property state. Everything acquired during your marriage is technically half yours, regardless of whose name it's in. But Shade said. Your husband is wrong, Zenobia interrupted. And his lawyer is either incompetent or unethical if he's advising Shade that he can keep everything. We're going to fight this, and we're going to win. How? I asked. First, we need to document everything you've contributed, Zenobia said. Every hour you spent doing bookkeeping, every financial decision you made, every way you supported the business. Can you do that? Yes, I said. I have records of everything. I've been keeping files for 30 years. Zenobia smiled. Perfect. Second, we're going to hire a forensic accountant to evaluate all of Shade's assets, every property, every account, every investment. We're going to find out exactly how much he's worth. And then we're going to make sure you get your fair share, Zenobia said. Mrs. Hart, by the time we're done, you're going to walk away from this marriage with half of everything your husband thinks is his alone. For the first time in months, I felt hope. Over the next month, I worked in secret. While Shade thought I was just being the quiet, obedient housewife, I was building my case. I pulled out 30 years of financial records I'd carefully kept because I was a trained accountant and that's what we do. Tax returns, bank statements, property deeds, investment portfolios. Everything. I documented every hour I'd spent working on Shade's business. I created spreadsheets showing all the financial planning I'd done, all the money I'd saved him in taxes, all the strategic decisions I'd advised him on. I gathered emails and documents proving that I'd been involved in major business decisions, even when Shade claimed I wasn't. And I hired the forensic accountant Zenobia recommended, a man named Homer Mitchell who specialized in uncovering hidden assets in divorce cases. Homer spent 3 weeks analyzing Shade's finances. When he came back with his report, even I was shocked. Mrs. Hart, Homer said, sitting across from me in Zenobia's office. Your husband is worth significantly more than you probably realized. How much? I asked. Based on current property values and investment portfolios, approximately $42 million. I felt dizzy. $42 million. Yes, ma'am, Homer said. And according to community property law, you're entitled to half of that, $21 million. $21 million. I'd known we were wealthy, but I hadn't realized just how wealthy. There's more, Homer continued. I found evidence that your husband has been hiding assets. He has offshore accounts that aren't disclosed in any tax documents. He has properties registered under shell companies. He's been systematically hiding money, probably in preparation for a divorce. Can we prove it? Zenobia asked. Absolutely, Homer said. I have documentation of everything. Zenobia turned to me with a fierce smile. Mrs. Hart, your husband thought he could cut you out and leave you with nothing, but he's about to learn that you're smarter than he ever gave you credit for. I spent the next month preparing. Zenobia filed divorce papers, but we didn't serve them to Shade yet. We wanted to have everything ready first. During this time, I acted completely normal at home. I cooked Shade's meals, cleaned the house, did his bookkeeping just like always. Shade noticed nothing. He was too busy with his businesses and too confident in his belief that I was helpless without him. One evening, about 6 weeks after I'd first talked to Zenobia, Shade came home and made an announcement. Melvina, I'm going to be traveling a lot over the next few months, he said. Big deals in the works. I might be gone for weeks at a time. Okay, I said calmly. I'll make sure you have money for groceries and bills, Shade continued. But try not to spend too much. Business expenses are high right now. He was treating me like a child who needed an allowance. Actually, Shade, I said, I need to talk to you about something. What? He asked, barely paying attention as he scrolled through his phone. I want a divorce. Shade's head snapped up. What? I want a divorce, I repeated. I'm not happy. I haven't been happy for a long time, and I think it's time we go our separate ways." Shade stared at me for a moment, then laughed. "You're joking." "I'm not joking." "Melvina, you can't divorce me," Shade said, shaking his head. "You have nothing. No money, no career, no skills. Where would you even go?" "I'll figure it out," I said. Shade's expression shifted from amusement to something colder. "Fine. If you want to leave, leave. But don't expect to take anything with you. This house. Mine, the cars. Mine, the bank accounts. Mine. You signed a postnuptial agreement 5 years ago, remember?" I did remember. Shade had convinced me to sign it by saying it was just a formality for tax purposes. I'd trusted him and signed it without reading it carefully. That had been my second mistake. But I'd already had that agreement reviewed by Zenobia, who confirmed it was poorly written and probably wouldn't hold up in court. "I remember," I said calmly. "Then you know you're leaving with nothing," Shade said, his voice cold and triumphant. "So go ahead, pack your bags, leave. But don't come crying back to me when you realize you can't afford a studio apartment on whatever minimum wage job you manage to get." "I won't be back," I said. "Yes, you will," Shade said confidently. "I give you a week before you're begging me to take you back. And Melvina, I might not say yes. You're not as young as you used to be. I could easily find someone younger, prettier, more grateful." Those words stung, but I didn't let him see it. "Goodbye, Shade," I said. I turned and walked upstairs to pack. Behind me, I heard Shade laugh. He thought he'd won. He thought I was walking away defeated. He had no idea what was coming. Over the next 2 weeks, I quietly moved my most important belongings to a storage unit. Photos, personal items, documents, things Shade wouldn't notice missing. I opened my own bank account at a different bank, using money I'd saved from years of careful budgeting. It wasn't much, just a few $1,000s, but it was mine. And I finalized everything with Zenobia and Homer. The divorce papers were ready. The evidence was compiled. The forensic accounting report was complete. We were ready to strike. On a Monday morning, exactly 2 weeks after I'd told Shade I wanted a divorce, I packed the last of my belongings into my car. Shade was home, watching me with that same smirk on his face. "Running away, Melvina?" he asked mockingly. "Moving forward," I corrected. "Whatever you want to call it," Shade said. "Like I said, you'll be back. You need me. You always have." I looked at him, this man I'd been married to for 35 years. This man who'd taken all my work and claimed it as his own. This man who thought I was nothing. "Shade, there's something you should know," I said. "What's that?" he asked, still smirking. "I'm not leaving you with nothing," I said. "I'm leaving you with less than nothing, and I'm walking away richer than you've ever been." His smirk faltered. "What are you talking about?" I got in my car, started the engine, and rolled down the window. "Check your bank accounts," I said. "Check your email, and then call your lawyer. Because in about an hour, you're going to understand exactly what I've been doing for the past 35 years. I drove away, leaving Shade standing there in confusion. And as I drove, I smiled. Because Shade was about to discover that the helpless housewife he'd underestimated was actually the smartest person he'd ever met. And she'd been 10 steps ahead of him the entire time. OMG, Melvina just walked away and Shade has no idea what's about to hit him. What did she do? What's going to happen when he checks his accounts? This is about to get explosive. If you're hooked on this story, you need to subscribe right now. Hit that like button and turn on those notifications. Drop a comment below. Do you think Melvina did the right thing? What do you think Shade is going to find when he checks his accounts? Where are you watching from? United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Kenya, Jamaica, Australia? Let me know. I drove to the small apartment I'd rented on the other side of town. It wasn't fancy, just a 1-bedroom place with basic furniture, but it was mine, all mine. As I unpacked my car, my phone rang. It was Zenobia. "Melvina, the papers have been served," she said. "Shade should have received them about 10 minutes ago." "Good," I said, my heart racing. Are you ready for what comes next? Zenobia asked. Because he's going to be furious. I'm ready, I said, and I meant it. Then let's do this, Zenobia said. I'll call you in a few hours with an update. I hung up and continued unpacking. My hands were steady, but my mind was racing. In a few hours, Shade would know everything, and his world would never be the same. After Melvina drove away, Shade went back inside the house, still chuckling to himself. She'll be back, he muttered. They always come back. He poured himself a drink and sat down in his office. He had some business calls to make, deals to close. Melvina's little tantrum was just a distraction. Around 11 o'clock, there was a knock on the door. Shade opened it to find a process server holding an envelope. Shade Hart, the man asked. Yes. You've been served, the man said, handing him the envelope and walking away. Shade stared at the envelope, confused. Then he opened it. Petition for dissolution of marriage. He scanned the document quickly, his confusion turning to amusement. So Melvina was serious about the divorce. Fine, let her file paperwork. His lawyer would handle it, and Melvina would get nothing. But then Shade noticed something that made him stop. Notice of asset freeze. He flipped to the next page, his amusement fatting. By order of the court, all joint bank accounts, investment accounts, and liquid assets are hereby frozen pending division of marital property. What? Shade said aloud. He kept reading. Notice of forensic audit. A complete forensic accounting of all assets, properties, and financial holdings has been ordered by the court. This includes all domestic and offshore accounts, shell companies, and hidden assets. Shade's hands started shaking. Preliminary findings. Based on initial investigation, the following assets have been identified. The document listed every single property Shade owned, every bank account, every investment, every offshore account he thought was hidden. Everything. And at the bottom of the page was a number that made Shade's stomach drop. Total marital assets, $42,186,000. Petitioner's claim, 50%, $21,093,000. Shade dropped the papers like they were on fire. $21 million. Melvina was claiming half of everything. No, he whispered. No, no, no. He grabbed his phone and called his lawyer, Green Patterson. Green, did you see the papers Melvina filed? Shade shouted into the phone. I just got a copy, Green said, his voice tense. Shade, we have a problem. What do you mean we have a problem? You said you could protect my assets. That was before I knew your wife had hired Zenobia Cross, Green said. Shade, Cross is one of the best divorce attorneys in the state, and she's filed a motion claiming financial elder abuse, fraud, and intentional hiding of marital assets. That's insane, Shade yelled. I didn't abuse anyone, this is MY money. Actually, it's not, Green said quietly. Shade, we're in a community property state. Everything you acquired during the marriage is legally half hers, regardless of whose name is on it. But the postnuptial agreement is poorly written and probably unenforceable, Green interrupted. I'm looking at it now. Shade, who drafted this? You did, Shade shouted. There was silence on the other end of the line. I'll call you back, Green said and hung up. Shade stood in his office, breathing hard, staring at the divorce papers. This couldn't be happening. Melvina was supposed to be helpless. She was supposed to need him. His phone buzzed, a notification from his bank. Account frozen BY court order. Then another notification, and another, every single one of his accounts frozen. Shade tried to log into his offshore accounts, access DNIED. He tried his investment accounts, frozen. His business accounts, frozen. Everything was locked down. Melvina, Shade whispered, his face going pale. What did you do? An hour later, my phone rang. It was a number I recognized, Shade's cell phone. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Hello, I said calmly. What did you do? Shade screamed so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. I filed for divorce, I said. You knew that. You froze my accounts, all of them. I can't access my own money. They're not your accounts, I corrected. They're our accounts, community property, remember. This is MY money, Shade yelled. I earned it, you didn't contribute anything. Actually, Shade, I have documentation proving I contributed significantly to building your wealth, I said. 35 years of financial management, tax planning, bookkeeping, strategic advising, all documented, all provable in court. You did paperwork, Shade shouted. That's not the same as building a business. Tell that to the judge, I said calmly. I have records of every hour I worked, every decision I made, every penny I saved you. The forensic accountant confirmed my contributions were substantial and essential to your success. Shade was breathing hard on the other end of the line. How much? How much are you asking for? Half, I said simply. $21 million. $21 million, Shade's voice cracked. You're insane. I'm not giving you $21 million. It's not giving, Shade. It's dividing. Half of 42 million is 21 million, basic math. I'll fight this, Shade said. I'll take you to court. I'll prove you don't deserve anything. Please do, I said. Because I have an excellent lawyer, a bulletproof case, and 35 years of evidence. How's your case looking? Shade didn't answer. Oh, and Shade, I added. You might want to check your email. The forensic accountant found your hidden offshore accounts. The ones you never reported on your taxes. The IRS might want to talk to you about those. I heard Shade gasp. Goodbye, Shade, I said. My lawyer will be in touch. I hung up and sat down, my hands shaking slightly. Not from fear, from adrenaline and satisfaction. For 35 years, Shade had made me feel worthless. He'd taken credit for my work, dismissed my contributions, and planned to leave me with nothing. Now he was the one with nothing, and I was the one holding all the cards. Over the next few days, I started to hear things through mutual friends and acquaintances. Shade was panicking. With all his accounts frozen, he couldn't access his money. He couldn't pay bills. He couldn't make payroll for his employees. He'd called emergency meetings with his business partners, trying to explain why he suddenly couldn't access funds. He'd tried to sell a property quickly to get cash, but the court order prevented any asset sales without both parties' approval. Shade Hart, the man who'd thought he had all the power, was now completely powerless. Meanwhile, I was living simply in my little apartment. I had enough money in my personal account to cover my basic expenses, and I had something more valuable than money, peace. For the first time in decades, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I wasn't afraid of saying the wrong thing or making a mistake. I wasn't being told I was worthless or useless. I was free. One afternoon, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello, I answered cautiously. Mrs. Hart, this is Artie Reynolds from Channel 5 News. We've heard about your divorce case, and we'd like to interview you. How did you hear about it? I asked, surprised. Court records are public, Artie explained. And your case is, well, it's unusual. A woman claiming she built half of a $42 million fortune while working as a housewife. It's a compelling story. I'm not interested in publicity, I said. I understand, Artie said. But Mrs. Hart, your story could help other women. Women who are in situations where their contributions aren't recognized. Women who are afraid to leave because they think they have nothing. I thought about that. How many other women were out there, being told they were worthless by their husbands? Let me think about it, I said. Of course, Artie said. Here's my number. Call me if you change your mind. A week after I filed for divorce, Zenobia called with an update. Melvina, Shade's lawyer, filed a counterpetition, she said. They're claiming you abandoned the marriage and that you're not entitled to any assets because you didn't work outside the home. Can they win with that argument? I asked, worried. Not a chance, Zenobia said confidently. Community property law doesn't care where the work happened, just that it happened. And we have proof you worked. Lots of proof. What happens now? We have a hearing next week, Zenobia said. The judge will review both sides and make preliminary decisions about asset division and temporary support. Melvina, I need to prepare you. Shade might be there. Are you ready to see him? I thought about it. The idea of seeing Shade made me nervous, but I wasn't afraid anymore. Yes, I said. I'm ready. Good, Zenobia said, because we're going to win this. The following Tuesday, I walked into the courthouse wearing a deep violet dress with lavender pearls, an outfit I'd bought with my own money from my personal account. I looked professional, confident, and strong. Zenobia met me outside the courtroom. You look perfect, she said. Remember, stay calm, don't react to anything Shade says, and let me do the talking. I will, I promised. We walked into the courtroom. Shade was already there with his lawyer, Green Patterson. When Shade saw me, his face went through several emotions: anger, shock, and something else. Fear. He looked terrible. His suit was wrinkled, his face was pale, and he had dark circles under his eyes. The confident, smirking man from 2 weeks ago was gone. In his place was someone who looked defeated. The judge, Judge Dovie Washington, entered and everyone stood. Please be seated, Judge Washington said. She was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense attitude. We're here for the preliminary hearing in Hart versus Hart. Let's begin. Green Patterson stood up. Your Honor, my client is requesting that the asset freeze be lifted immediately. Mr. Hart needs access to his business accounts to operate his companies. Those aren't just his accounts, Zenobia countered. They're marital assets, and given Mr. Hart's documented history of hiding assets, a freeze is appropriate until proper division can occur. Mr. Hart hasn't hidden anything, Green protested. Really? Zenobia held up a thick folder. Your Honor, I have documentation of offshore accounts Mr. Hart never disclosed on tax returns, properties registered under shell companies, and systematic attempts to minimize Mrs. Hart's contributions to the marital estate. Judge Washington took the folder and started reading. Her expression grew increasingly stern. Mr. Patterson, the judge said slowly, did you know about these offshore accounts? Green shifted uncomfortably. That is, my client may have some international holdings. Undisclosed international holdings, the judge interrupted. Mr. Hart, stand up. Shade stood, looking terrified. Mr. Hart, did you intentionally hide assets from your wife with the intent to deprive her of her fair share in a potential divorce? Judge Washington asked. I was just protecting what I built, Shade stammered. That's not what I asked, the judge said sharply. Did you hide assets, yes or no? Shade looked at his lawyer, who gave him a helpless shrug. Yes, Shade finally admitted, his voice barely a whisper. Your Honor, this proves, Zenobia started. Judge Washington held up her hand. I've seen enough. The asset freeze will remain in place. Additionally, I'm ordering Mr. Hart to provide full disclosure of all assets, domestic and international, within 10 days. Failure to comply will result in contempt charges. Your Honor, that's, Green protested. 10 days, the judge repeated firmly. Furthermore, I'm granting Mrs. Hart temporary spousal support of $20,000 per month to be paid from Mr. Hart's accessible funds. 20,000, Shade burst out. Your Honor, I can't. You have $42 million in assets, Mr. Hart, Judge Washington said coldly. I think you can afford $20,000 a month for your wife of 35 years. The wife who, according to these documents, did substantial financial work that contributed to your wealth. Shade's face went red, but he said nothing. We'll reconvene in 30 days for a full hearing on asset division, Judge Washington said. Until then, the freeze remains, and Mr. Hart will comply with all disclosure requirements. Court is adjourned. She banged her gavel. As people started filing out, I glanced at Shade. He was staring at me with a mixture of shock and something that looked like fear. Our eyes met across the courtroom. And for the first time in 35 years, Shade looked away first. That evening, the story hit the local news. I watched from my apartment as the reporter, Artie Reynolds, stood in front of the courthouse. "A major divorce case is unfolding here in our city," Artie said. 69-year-old Melvina Hart is suing her husband of 35 years for half of his $42 million fortune, claiming she contributed substantially to building that wealth through decades of unpaid financial work. The screen showed footage of Shade leaving the courthouse, looking haggard. "Mr. Hart's lawyer declined to comment," Artie continued. "But sources say Mr. Hart has been accused of hiding offshore assets and attempting to deprive his wife of her rightful share of the marital estate." My phone started ringing. Friends I hadn't heard from in years, people from church, even some of Shade's business associates. Everyone wanted to know the story. I ignored most of the calls, but one call I did answer. It was from my old friend Pearlie, someone I hadn't talked to since Shade had discouraged me from having friends. "Melvina," Pearlie said, "I saw the news. Is it true? You're really divorcing Shade?" "Yes," I said. "Good," Pearlie said fiercely. "That man always treated you terribly. I'm glad you finally stood up for yourself." "You knew?" I asked, surprised. "Of course I knew," Pearlie said. "Everyone knew. The way he'd talk down to you at parties, the way he'd take credit for everything. We all saw it. We didn't know what to do." "It's okay," I said. "I'm handling it now." "And from what I saw on the news, you're handling it well," Pearlie laughed. $21 million. Melvina, you're going to be rich." "I already did the work," I said. "Now I'm just getting paid for it." 3 days after the hearing, there was a knock on my apartment door. I looked through the peephole and my heart stopped. It was Shade. I considered not opening the door, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door but left the chain on. "What do you want, Shade?" He looked even worse than he had in court. His eyes were bloodshot, his clothes rumpled. "Melvina, please, can we talk?" he said. "We have lawyers for that," I said. "Please," Shade said, and his voice cracked. "Just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I took off the chain and let him in, but I left the door open. Shade walked into my small apartment and looked around. "This is where you're living?" "Yes." "It's so small," he said. "It's enough," I said. "What do you want, Shade?" He turned to face me, and I was shocked to see tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said. I crossed my arms. "For what specifically?" For everything," Shade said. "For taking you for granted, for not appreciating what you did, for trying to cut you out. And for hiding assets," I added, "and planning to leave me with nothing, and telling me I was worthless." Shade flinched at each question. "Yes, for all of it." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Is it because you actually feel sorry, or because you're scared of losing $21 million? Shade opened his mouth, then closed it. He couldn't answer. "That's what I thought," I said. "Shade, for 35 years, you made me feel like I was nothing. You took my work and claimed it as yours. You dismissed every contribution I made. And when I finally stood up for myself, you mocked me and said I'd come crawling back." "I was wrong," Shade said quietly. "Yes, you were," I agreed. "And now you're facing the consequences." "Melvina, please," Shade said, and he actually got down on one knee. "Please drop the divorce. We can work this out. I'll change. I'll appreciate you more. I'll put your name on everything. Just please, don't destroy me." I looked down at this man who was begging me. This man who'd spent decades making me feel small. This man who'd thought I needed him to survive. And now he was on his knees, begging me. "Shade, get up," I said. He stood slowly. "I'm not dropping the divorce," I said firmly. "And I'm not doing this to destroy you. I'm doing this to claim what's rightfully mine." $21 million will ruin me," Shade said desperately. "No, it won't," I said. "You'll still have $21 million. That's more money than most people see in a lifetime. You'll be fine." "But the business." "Will survive," I interrupted. "You're a good businessman, Shade. You can rebuild. You just have to do it without using me." Shade stared at me, tears running down his face. I thought you loved me. I did love you, I said quietly. For a long time, but you killed that love with your arrogance and disrespect, and now it's too late. So that's it, Shade asked. 35 years of marriage and you're just done. Yes, I said, I'm done. Shade stood there for a moment, looking lost. Then he walked to the door. Melvina, he said, turning back, I really am sorry for what it's worth. It's worth something, I acknowledged, but it's not enough. He nodded and left. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding. Shade had apologized, he'd begged, he'd cried. But I wasn't going back, not now, not ever. Because I'd finally learned my worth, and it was worth a lot more than Shade had ever given me credit for. Shade is falling apart. He's begging, crying, and losing everything. But will Melvina's resolve hold? And what happens at the final hearing? This story is reaching its explosive peak. Subscribe now if you haven't already. Smash that like button and turn on NOTFICTONS. Comment below, should Melvina feel sorry for Shade? Do you think she'll get her 21 million? Where are you watching from? The days following Shade's visit to my apartment were strange. I felt guilty for about 10 minutes after he left, seeing him on his knees, crying, begging me to reconsider. But then I remembered 35 years of being told I was worthless. 35 years of having my work dismissed. 35 years of being treated like a servant in my own marriage. And the guilt disappeared. I had work to do. 10 days after the first hearing, Shade submitted his full asset disclosure to the court. Zenobia called me immediately after receiving it. Melvina, you need to sit down for this, she said. Why, what did he disclose? I asked, my heart racing. Everything, Zenobia said. And I mean everything. Shade is worth even more than we thought. How much more? Try $58 million. I sat down hard on my couch. 58 million. Yes, Zenobia said. After the first hearing, Homer went back and dug deeper. He found more hidden properties, more offshore accounts, more investments that Shade never told anyone about. When faced with contempt charges, Shade finally disclosed everything. So I'm entitled to. I couldn't even finish the sentence. $29 million, Zenobia said. Half of 58 million. $29 million. I'd gone from being a woman with a few $1,000s in savings to potentially having $29 million. Can he afford to pay that? I asked. Barely, Zenobia said. He'll have to liquidate some assets, sell some properties. But yes, he can pay it. And Melvina, he's fighting it hard. His lawyer filed a motion claiming the offshore accounts were business investments that shouldn't count as marital property. Can they win with that argument? Not likely, Zenobia said. Money earned during a marriage is marital property, regardless of where it's kept or what it's called. But it means we're going to trial. Are you ready for that? I thought about it. A trial meant facing Shade in court. It meant having my entire marriage examined publicly. It meant fighting. But I'd been fighting my whole marriage. At least now I was fighting for something that mattered. Yes, I said, I'm ready. A week later, I woke up to dozens of messages on my phone. Friends, acquaintances, even people I barely knew, all asking me the same question. Did you see what Shade said about you? I turned on the TV and immediately saw why. Shade was on the local morning news, being interviewed by a sympathetic-looking reporter. Mr. Hart, thank you for joining us, the reporter said. You're going through a very public divorce right now. Can you tell us your side of the story? Of course, Shade said, looking tired and sad, playing the victim perfectly. My wife and I were married for 35 years. I built a successful business and I always made sure she was taken care of. She had a beautiful home, nice clothes, everything she could want. But she's claiming she helped build your fortune, the reporter prompted. She did some bookkeeping, Shade said dismissively. Basic household accounting. But to claim she built half of a $58 million business empire, it's not true. My hands clenched into fists. What she's really doing, Shade continued, is taking advantage of an unfair system. I worked 60, 70 hours a week for decades. I took all the risks, made all the hard decisions, built everything from nothing. And now, just because we're getting divorced, she wants to take half of everything I worked for. So you're saying she doesn't deserve half? The reporter asked. I'm saying marriage shouldn't be a lottery ticket, Shade said. Just because you're married to someone successful doesn't mean you're entitled to their success, especially when you didn't contribute to building it. I turned off the TV, my whole body shaking with anger. My phone rang. It was Zenobia. Did you see it? She asked. Yes. Don't worry, Zenobia said. This is actually good for us. How is this good? I asked. Because Shade just went on TV and claimed you didn't contribute to the business. We have 35 years of documentation proving otherwise. Melvina, he just gave us ammunition for trial. Should I respond? I asked. Should I do an interview too? Actually, Zenobia said slowly, yes, I think you should. Artie Reynolds from Channel 5 has been asking to interview you. If you're comfortable with it, I think it's time to tell your side of the story. I thought about it. I wasn't someone who liked attention. But if Shade was going to lie about me publicly, maybe I needed to tell the truth publicly. Okay, I said, set it up. 2 days later, I sat in a TV studio across from Artie Reynolds. I was wearing my violet suit with lavender pearls, and I'd spent the morning preparing with Zenobia about what to say and what not to say. Mrs. Hart, thank you for agreeing to this interview, Artie began. Your husband recently gave an interview where he said you didn't contribute to building his business. What's your response? I took a deep breath. My response is that I have 35 years of evidence that says otherwise. Can you elaborate? I'm a trained accountant, I said. When Shade and I got married, I had my own successful firm. 5 years into our marriage, Shade asked me to close my firm and focus on supporting his business. He promised we were partners, so I did. What did that support look like? Artie asked. Everything, I said. I did all the bookkeeping, all the tax planning, all the financial strategy. When Shade wanted to buy a property, I analyzed whether it was a good investment. When he needed to structure a deal, I figured out the best way to minimize taxes. When the business was struggling, I found ways to cut costs and increase profits. So you were essentially the CFO of his business. Yes, I said. Except I wasn't paid, wasn't acknowledged, and wasn't given any credit. To hear Shade tell it, I just helped a little with some paperwork. But the truth is, without my financial expertise, his business would have failed years ago. Do you have proof of this? Artie asked. Absolutely, I said. I kept records of everything, every hour I worked, every decision I made, every strategy I implemented. I have tax returns showing my name as a preparer. I have emails where Shade asked for my advice on major deals. I have documentation of everything. Your husband says you're taking advantage of an unfair system, Artie said. What do you say to that? I looked directly into the camera. I say that for 35 years, I worked without pay, without recognition, and without appreciation. I gave up my career to support his. And when I finally asked for what I'd earned, he tried to cut me out completely. The only person taking advantage of anyone in this marriage was Shade taking advantage of me. What do you want people to know? Artie asked. I want women to know that their work has value, I said, my voice becoming emotional. Whether you work in an office or at home, whether you get a paycheck or not, your contributions matter. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The interview aired that evening, and the response was overwhelming. My phone rang constantly with messages of support. Women I'd never met reached out to share their own stories of having their contributions dismissed by their husbands. One message particularly stood out. It was from a woman named Winnie who wrote, Mrs. Hart, I'm 30 years old and going through the same thing. My husband built a business while I stayed home with our kids and did all his bookkeeping. Now he says I contributed nothing. Your story gave me the courage to fight for what I deserve. Thank you. I cried when I read that, because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every woman who'd been told her work didn't matter. As the trial date approached, I started hearing concerning things about Shade through mutual acquaintances. He'd stopped going to his office regularly. He was drinking heavily. He'd fired 2 employees who'd spoken to me or expressed sympathy for my situation. One evening, I got a call from Shade's business partner, Arch Whitmore. "Mrs. Hart, I need to talk to you," Arch said. "It's about Shade." "I don't think we should be talking," I said. "We're in the middle of a divorce." "I know, but I'm worried," Arch said. "Shade is falling apart. He's making terrible business decisions. He tried to sell a property for half its value just to get quick cash. I had to stop him." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because someone needs to help him," Arch said. "And you're the only person who might be able to get through to him." "Arch, Shade made his choices," I said. "He's the one who tried to hide assets and cut me out. He's the one who dismissed my contributions. I'm not responsible for how he handles the consequences." "I understand," Arch said. "But Mrs. Hart, I've known Shade for 20 years. I've never seen him like this. I think he's having a breakdown." "Then he should see a therapist," I said. "I'm not his keeper anymore." I hung up, but Arch's words stayed with me. Was Shade really falling apart? And if he was, should I care? A week before the trial, I got a visit from someone I never expected to see. Shade's sister, Dovie Hart. Dovie and I had never been close. She'd always taken Shade's side in everything. So when she showed up at my apartment, I was immediately suspicious. "Melvina, can I come in?" she asked. "Why?" I asked. "Please, I need to talk to you." Reluctantly, I let her in. Dovie sat down on my couch and looked at me with sad eyes. "Melvina, I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For years of not seeing the truth," Dovie said. "I always thought Shade was this successful, self-made businessman, and I thought you were just there, the supportive wife." "That's what everyone thought," I said bitterly. "But it wasn't true," Dovie continued. "After your interview aired, I went through some old family documents. I found letters you'd written to our mother, talking about the business strategies you were implementing. I found thank you notes from Shade's early business partners, praising your financial expertise. I found proof of everything you said." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I want to testify," Dovie said. "At the trial, I want to tell the judge that I've seen evidence of your contributions, that I was wrong to dismiss them." I stared at her in shock. "You want to testify for me, against your own brother?" "I want to testify for the truth," Dovie said. "Melvina, what Shade did to you was wrong. He used you, dismissed you, and tried to cheat you. You deserve justice." "What does Shade think about this?" I asked. "He doesn't know," Dovie admitted. "He's going to be furious, but I don't care. This is the right thing to do." I felt tears in my eyes. For years, I'd felt so alone in this marriage. And now, Shade's own sister was standing up for me. "Thank you," I whispered. "Don't thank me," Dovie said. "I should have done this years ago." The trial started on a cold Monday morning in December. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, curious onlookers, and people who'd been following the case. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Zenobia, wearing my best suit and trying to look confident even though my stomach was churning. Across the aisle, Shade sat with his lawyer, Green Patterson. Shade looked terrible, thin, pale, exhausted. When our eyes met, he quickly looked away. Judge Dovie Washington entered, and the trial began. "This is a dissolution of marriage case with significant financial assets at stake," Judge Washington said. "Mrs. Hart is claiming she's entitled to half of a $58 million marital estate. Mr. Hart disputes this claim, arguing that Mrs. Hart did not substantially contribute to building this wealth. Let's hear opening statements." Zenobia stood up. "Your Honor, this case is about recognition and justice. For 35 years, Melvina Hart worked as the uncredited CFO of her husband's business empire. She provided financial expertise, strategic planning, and essential business support. Meanwhile, her husband took all the credit and now claims she contributed nothing. We have documentation, testimony, and proof that Mrs. Hart earned every penny she's claiming." Green Patterson stood up. Your Honor, this case is about a woman trying to profit from a marriage that's ending. Mr. Hart built his business through hard work, risk-taking, and business acumen. His wife supported him, yes, but support is not the same as building. Mrs. Hart is seeking $29 million for what amounts to household accounting. That's not justice, that's exploitation. Let's hear evidence, Judge Washington said. Attorney Cross, call your first witness. I call Melvina Hart to the stand, Zenobia said. I walked to the witness stand, my heart pounding. After being sworn in, Zenobia began questioning me. Mrs. Hart, can you describe your role in your husband's business? I was the financial backbone, I said clearly. I did all bookkeeping, all tax preparation, all financial planning and strategy. When Shade wanted to make a business decision, he'd come to me to analyze whether it made financial sense. Can you give specific examples? Yes, I said. In 1998, Shade wanted to buy a commercial property downtown. I analyzed the financials and determined it was overpriced. I found a different property that was a better investment. That property is now worth $4 million. Did your husband acknowledge your contribution? No, I said. He told people he'd found a great deal, but never mentioned that I'd done the analysis. Mrs. Hart, how many hours per week did you work on the business? In the early years, 30 to 40 hours a week, I said. Later, as the business grew, sometimes 50 or 60 hours a week. And were you paid for this work? No, I said. I was told it was my duty as a wife. Zenobia pulled out a document. Your Honor, I'd like to submit Exhibit A, a log Mrs. Hart kept of her work hours over 35 years, totaling approximately 65,000 hours of unpaid labor. Shade's lawyer jumped up. Objection. Mrs. Hart can't possibly have accurate records going back 35 years. Actually, I can, I said calmly. I'm an accountant. I kept detailed records of everything, including my own time. Every spreadsheet, every analysis, every strategy document is dated and filed. Judge Washington looked at the documents. Objection overruled. Continue. Zenobia smiled. Mrs. Hart, if you had been paid market rate for this financial work, what would you have earned? Based on average CFO salaries over 35 years, approximately $8 million, I said. There were gasps in the courtroom. Shade's face went pale. But you're not asking for $8 million, Zenobia said. You're asking for half the marital estate, $29 million. Why? Because I wasn't just an employee, I said. I was a partner. My financial expertise helped build a $58 million fortune. Half of that, $29 million, is my fair share. Green Patterson stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Hart, you claim you were essential to the business, but the business is in your husband's name, correct? Yes. And all the properties are in his name? Yes, because he insisted on it. So legally, you have no ownership stake in any of this. That's what we're here to determine, I said calmly. Mrs. Hart, isn't it true that you chose to be a housewife, that you wanted to stay home? No, I said. I wanted to keep working. Shade convinced me to close my firm to support his business. He promised we were partners. But you never asked for a salary. I was married to the owner, I said. I thought the business success was our success. I didn't realize Shade saw it as only his success until recently. No further questions, Green said, looking frustrated. Zenobia called several witnesses. The forensic accountant Homer Mitchell, former employees who'd seen me working, business partners who'd benefited from my financial advice. But the most powerful testimony came from an unexpected source. I called Dovie Hart to the stand, Zenobia said. Shade's head snapped up. What? He whispered loudly. No. Dovie walked to the stand, not looking at her brother. Ms. Hart, what is your relationship to the defendant? Zenobia asked. I'm his sister, Dovie said. And you've agreed to testify on behalf of the plaintiff, your sister-in-law, against your own brother. Yes, Dovie said firmly. Why? Because it's the truth, Dovie said. For years, I believed my brother's version of events, that he built everything on his own. But after Melvina's interview, I looked through family documents. I found evidence that Melvina was instrumental in building the business. I found letters where Shade himself praised her financial genius. I found documents proving she wasn't just helping, she was essential. "Objection," Green shouted. "This is hearsay." "I have the documents right here," Dovey said, holding up a folder. "Letters from Shade to our mother, talking about how Melvina saved him from bankruptcy in 2001 with her financial strategies. Emails from Shade to business partners, crediting Melvina's expertise. This isn't hearsay, it's written proof." Zenobia took the documents and submitted them as evidence. Shade looked like he wanted to disappear. "Ms. Hart, why are you doing this?" Zenobia asked. "You must know it will damage your relationship with your brother." "Because my brother was wrong," Dovey said, looking directly at Shade. "And I was wrong to support him. Melvina deserves justice, and if testifying against my own brother is what it takes to give her that justice, then that's what I'll do." Green had no questions for Dovey. What could he ask? Finally, it was Shade's turn to testify. He walked to the stand looking defeated, his confidence completely gone. Green tried to rehabilitate him. "Mr. Hart, can you describe how you built your business?" "I worked hard," Shade said quietly. "I took risks, I made deals." "And your wife helped with some paperwork." "She did more than paperwork," Shade admitted, his voice barely audible. The courtroom went silent. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hart, can you repeat that?" Green asked, clearly panicked. "She did more than paperwork," Shade said louder. She was brilliant with finances. She saved me from mistakes. She found opportunities I'd missed. She was." "Mr. Hart, please," Green tried to interrupt. "She was right," Shade said, tears streaming down his face. "I couldn't have built any of this without her. I know that. I've always known that. I wanted people to think I did it alone. I wanted to be the successful businessman who made it on his own. And so I erased her contribution. I pretended she was just the supportive wife when she was actually my partner." He looked directly at me. "Melvina, I'm sorry," he said. "You deserve half of everything. You earned it. You earned all of it." The courtroom erupted. Judge Washington banged her gavel. Green Patterson looked like he wanted to strangle his client. And I sat there, tears streaming down my face, watching my husband of 35 years finally tell the truth. Shade just admitted everything in court. This trial just took a shocking turn. What happens now? Will Melvina get her $29 million? And what will happen to Shade? Subscribe now, hit that like button, and turn on NOTFICTONS. Comment below, were you surprised by Shade's testimony? Do you think Melvina should forgive him? Where are you watching from? The courtroom was still buzzing with shocked whispers as Judge Washington banged her gavel repeatedly. "Order, I will have order in this courtroom," she commanded. Everyone fell silent. All eyes were on Shade, who sat in the witness stand with his head in his hands, sobbing quietly. Green Patterson looked absolutely devastated. His entire defense strategy had just collapsed because his own client had admitted everything. Judge Washington turned to Shade. "Mr. Hart, I need to be clear. Are you stating under oath that your wife did contribute substantially to building your business?" Shade nodded, unable to speak. "I need verbal confirmation for the record," the judge said. "Yes," Shade said, his voice cracking. "Yes, Your Honor, everything Melvina said is true. She was my partner. She built this with me. Without her, I'd have nothing." Judge Washington sat back in her chair, studying both of us. "Attorney Patterson, do you have any further questions for your client?" Green stood up slowly. "No, Your Honor, no further questions." Attorney Cross. Zenobia stood. "No questions, Your Honor. I think Mr. Hart's testimony speaks for itself." "Indeed it does," Judge Washington said. "We'll take a 30-minute recess and then I'll deliver my ruling." During the recess, I sat in the hallway with Zenobia. My hands were shaking. "I can't believe he admitted it," I said. "After all this fighting, all these months, he just admitted everything." "Sometimes the truth becomes too heavy to carry," Zenobia said gently. Melvina, you won. You know that, right? After that testimony, there's no way the judge rules against you. I know, I said, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt sad that it had come to this. Sad that 35 years of marriage had ended in a courtroom. A few feet away, I saw Shade sitting alone on a bench. His lawyer had left him. His sister Dovie walked past him without saying a word. He looked completely alone. Our eyes met across the hallway. Shade stood up slowly and walked toward me. Zenobia tensed, ready to intervene if needed. Melvina, Shade said quietly, can we talk? Just for a minute. Zenobia looked at me. I nodded. I'll be right over there, Zenobia said, giving us privacy but staying close enough to help if needed. Shade sat down next to me on the bench, keeping a respectful distance between us. I meant what I said in there, he began. Everything, you were right about all of it. Why did it take a trial for you to admit it? I asked. Because I'm a fool, Shade said. A proud, arrogant fool who is so desperate to be seen as successful that I erased the person who actually made me successful. He turned to look at me, his eyes red from crying. Melvina, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything from you. But I need you to know that I see you now. I see everything you did. I see your value, your brilliance, your sacrifice. And I'm so sorry that I spent 35 years making you feel invisible. Thank you for saying that, I said quietly. But Shade, it's too late for sorry to fix this. I know, he said. I know I destroyed us. I destroyed the one person who loved me enough to give up everything for me, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. We sat in silence for a moment. What are you going to do after this? I asked. I don't know, Shade admitted. Rebuild, I guess, start over, be better, be the man I should have been all along. I hope you do, I said sincerely. Not for me, for yourself. What about you? Shade asked. What will you do with $29 million? Live, I said simply. Really live. For the first time in decades, I'm going to do what I want, go where I want, be who I want. No one controlling me, no one dismissing me, just me living my life on my terms. Shade nodded sadly. That's what you deserve. That's what you always deserved. A bailiff came out. Court is resuming in 5 minutes. Shade stood up. Melvina, thank you. For what? I asked. For fighting for yourself, he said. For showing me who I really was. And for 35 years of being the best partner I never appreciated. He walked away before I could respond. Judge Washington sat at her bench, looking down at us with a serious expression. I've presided over many divorce cases in my career, she began. But this case is unique, not because of the amount of money involved, but because it represents a larger issue in our society, the devaluation of unpaid labor, particularly women's unpaid labor. She looked directly at me. Mrs. Hart, you worked for 35 years building your husband's business. You provided expert financial services that would have cost millions if he'd hired an outside firm. Yet you were never compensated, never credited, and when the marriage ended, your husband attempted to leave you with nothing. She turned to Shade. Mr. Hart, your behavior was reprehensible. You took advantage of your wife's love, loyalty, and expertise. You benefited from her labor while systematically erasing her contributions, and you attempted to hide assets to deprive her of her rightful share. However, I do note that you ultimately told the truth in this courtroom, which speaks to some level of conscience. Judge Washington picked up her gavel. Based on the evidence presented, including Mr. Hart's own testimony, I find that Mrs. Hart did contribute substantially to building the marital estate. She is entitled to an equitable division of all marital assets. My heart pounded. The marital estate is valued at $58 million. I award Mrs. Melvina Hart exactly half, $29 million, to be paid through a combination of cash, property transfers, and asset liquidation within 90 days. The gavel came down with a decisive bang. Furthermore, Judge Washington continued, I'm ordering Mr. Hart to pay Mrs. Hart's legal fees, which amount to $200,000. And I'm placing a lien on Mr. Hart's remaining assets to ensure compliance with this order. She looked at both of us. This marriage is dissolved. You are both free to move forward with your lives. Court is adjourned. Another bang of the gavel. It was over. I'd won. The courtroom erupted in noise. Reporters shouting questions, people congratulating me, Zenobia hugging me tightly. You did it, Zenobia said. $29 million, Melvina, you did it. But I couldn't focus on any of it. I looked across the courtroom at Shade. He was sitting alone at his table, staring at nothing, looking completely defeated. For 35 years, I'd been the one who felt defeated. Now our roles were reversed. I should have felt happy, victorious, triumphant. But mostly, I just felt tired. True to the court order, Shade paid everything within 90 days. $29 million was transferred to my accounts through a combination of cash payments and property transfers. I was now, officially, a multimillionaire. The first thing I did was buy a beautiful house, not as big as the mansion Shade and I had shared, but perfect for me. It had a garden, a library, and a porch where I could sit and watch the sunset. It was mine, all mine. The second thing I did was restart my accounting firm. But this time, I specialized in helping women who were going through divorces understand their financial rights. I offered free consultations to women who couldn't afford lawyers. Within months, I had dozens of clients, women who'd been told they contributed nothing, women who'd given up careers to support their husbands, women who were being cheated out of what they'd earned. I helped them all, and every time I helped a woman get her fair share, I thought about my own journey. The third thing I did was travel. I went to Paris, Rome, Tokyo, Sydney, all the places Shade had promised to take me but never did. I traveled first class, stayed in nice hotels, and ate at fancy restaurants. And everywhere I went, I felt free. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I started a foundation, the Melvina Hart Foundation for Women's Financial Empowerment. The foundation provided grants to women starting businesses, scholarships for women studying finance and accounting, and legal aid for women going through financial abuse. I put $5 million of my own money into the foundation. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about helping other women find their worth. At the foundation's launch event, I gave a speech to a room full of supporters, including many women I'd helped over the past months. For 35 years, I let someone else define my value, I said. I let someone else take credit for my work. I let someone else convince me I was worthless. But I want every woman here to know your work has value, your contributions matter, and you have the right to claim what you've earned. The room erupted in applause. After the speech, a young woman approached me. She was in her 30s, holding a baby. Mrs. Hart, I'm Artie Chen, she said. 3 years ago, I left my career to support my husband's startup. Now he's worth millions. And he's trying to divorce me and claim I contributed nothing. I saw your story on the news, and it gave me courage to fight. I hired a lawyer, and we're going to court next month. Good for you, I said, squeezing her hand. Don't let him erase you. You earned your share. I won't, Artie said, tears in her eyes. Because of you, I know I'm worth fighting for. That moment, that right there, was worth more than all $29 million. 1 year after the divorce, I was working in my home office when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find someone I hadn't seen in months. Shade. He looked different, thinner but healthier. His eyes were clear, he looked humble. Melvina, he said, I know I have no right to be here, but I needed to talk to you. How did you find my address? I asked. Dovie told me, he admitted. She said you might be willing to talk. If you're not, I understand, I'll leave. I considered sending him away, but curiosity won out. You have 10 minutes, I said, letting him in. We sat in my living room, my beautiful, peaceful living room that was all mine. I've been in therapy, Shade began, for the past year, working through why I did what I did, why I treated you the way I treated you. And, I asked. And I've learned a lot about myself, Shade said. About my insecurity, my need to be seen as successful, my inability to share credit. About how I turned you into an object to serve my ego instead of seeing you as a partner. That's good that you're learning, I said, but why are you here? Because I wanted you to know that you changed my life, Shade said. Not just by divorcing me and taking half the money, though that certainly got my attention, but by standing up for yourself, by refusing to be erased, by fighting for your worth. He looked at me with genuine respect. Melvina, you're the strongest person I've ever met, and I was too arrogant to see it for 35 years, but I see it now. What happened to the business? I asked, changing the subject. I downsized significantly, Shade said. Sold most of the properties. I kept a few investments, and I'm doing consulting work. I'm making enough to live comfortably, but I'm not chasing empire building anymore. Why not? Because I learned that building an empire is meaningless if you destroy the people who help you build it, Shade said. I'd rather have less money and more integrity. We sat in silence for a moment. I heard about your foundation, Shade said. Helping women going through financial abuse. That's really good work, Melvina. Thank you, I said. I made a donation, Shade continued. $500,000, anonymously, but I wanted you to know it was from me. I was surprised. Why? Because I want to support what you're doing, Shade said. And because I'm trying to make amends for the damage I caused. Not just to you, but to every woman who watched our case and saw herself in your story. He stood to leave. Melvina, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect us to be friends. But I want you to know that you won more than money. You won your freedom, your dignity, and your voice. And watching you walk away richer than me, not just in money but in strength and character, was the wake-up call I needed. Shade, I said as he walked to the door, I hope you find peace. I hope you already have, he replied. After he left, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, watching the sunset over my garden. Did I forgive Shade? I didn't know yet, maybe someday, maybe never. But I didn't need to forgive him to move forward. Because I'd already moved forward. I'd already claimed my worth. I'd already built a new life. It's been 2 years since the divorce was finalized. My foundation has helped over 300 women claim their fair share in divorces. My accounting firm is thriving, and I'm happier than I've ever been. I'm 71 years old now. Some people might think that's too old to start over, too old to build a new life. But I've learned that age is just a number, and it's never too late to claim your worth. Last week, I gave a speech at a women's conference. The room was packed with over 1,000 women, young and old, from all walks of life. My husband thought I would beg, I told them. He thought I needed him to survive. He thought I'd come crawling back when I realized I had nothing without him. I paused, looking out at all those faces. But I didn't beg. I didn't crawl back. Instead, I documented my worth, hired a lawyer, and took him to court. And when the judge asked what I wanted, I didn't ask for mercy or charity. I demanded what I'd earned. The room was silent, everyone hanging on my words. And you know what happened? I continued. I walked away with $29 million. I walked away richer than the man who tried to leave me with nothing. And the moment he realized what I'd done, he trembled. I smiled. Not because I was cruel or vindictive, but because he finally understood that he'd underestimated me. He'd spent 35 years thinking I was weak, dependent, worthless. And in one court case, I proved I was none of those things. The crowd erupted in applause, standing, cheering, some women crying. So to every woman here who's been told she's worth nothing, I said over the applause, to every woman who's been erased, dismissed, or underestimated, I want you to know this. You are worth fighting for. Your contributions matter. Your work has value. And you deserve to claim what you've earned. Don't beg, I said firmly. Don't accept less than you deserve. Stand up, document your worth, and fight for yourself. Because when you do, the people who underestimated you won't just be surprised. I looked directly into the camera that was recording the speech. They'll tremble. That night I stood on my porch looking up at the stars. My phone rang. It was Zenobia. Did you see the news? she asked excitedly. What news? Your speech went viral. It's been viewed 10 million times in the past 6 hours. Women all over the world are sharing it, saying you inspired them. I smiled. That's wonderful. Melvina, you're becoming a symbol, Zenobia said. A symbol of women fighting for their worth and winning. I'm just one woman who got tired of being invisible, I said. No, Zenobia corrected. You're one woman who changed the narrative. You proved that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. That age doesn't mean weakness. That being a housewife doesn't mean you're worthless. You changed everything. After we hung up, I sat down on my porch swing, wrapped in a blanket, thinking about my journey. 35 years of being told I was nothing. 3 months of gathering evidence. One trial that changed my life. And now, 2 years of freedom, purpose, and genuine happiness. My husband thought I would beg. He thought wrong. He trembled when I walked away richer than him, not just in money, but in strength, dignity, and self-worth. And that, more than any dollar amount, was the real victory. I'd reclaimed myself. And nothing, and no one, could take that away from me ever again. What an incredible journey. Melvina didn't just win $29 million. She reclaimed her dignity, her worth, and her entire life. She proved that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. This story shows that your contributions matter, whether you're paid for them or not. Your work has value, and you deserve to fight for what you've earned. If this story inspired you, please subscribe to this channel for more empowering stories. Smash that like button. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. Drop a comment below. What was your favorite moment in Melvina's story? Do you think she should have forgiven Shade? Where are you watching from? United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Jamaica, Kenya, South Africa, Australia, India, Trinidad, the Philippines. Let me know. I want to see my global family. Remember, you are worth fighting for. Your contributions matter, and it's never too late to claim what you deserve. Thank you for following Melvina's powerful journey from invisibility to victory. May her story inspire you to never accept less than your worth. Until the next story, stay strong, stay blessed, and remember, don't beg. Stand up, fight for yourself, and watch them tremble when they realize what you're truly worth.